Hello and welcome to Kain Company. I'm David Kain, and today I'm going to be joined by Jerry Seiner Jr. of the Jerry Seiner dealerships. Jerry's going to talk about his experience as the advertising director for the group. Let's get right to it. So joining me today is Jerry Seiner Jr. of the Seiner family dealerships out in Salt Lake City, Utah. And Jerry, thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy day to join us.
Happy to be here.
Excellent. One thing I love about having you on the show is we've both got what a lot of people affectionately call us, we have our PhD. Papas have dealerships. And it's fun to commiserate with someone who's been through that kind of environment as you came up through the ranks. Tell me a little bit about how you got in, probably were carried in as a baby, and then probably ran away as a teenager and as a young adult, and now you're back in the stores.
Yeah, it's it's a great story. My dad got into the business when I was 5, and had a history of selling prior to that in the newspaper business, but had a lot of success, did very well with it. And I started my career at the age of 11 sweeping parking lots, of all things, 12 washing cars, 13 stocking parts, and so on. I did sell cars when I was in college during summers, and then I went away, had a career in entertainment marketing and design, did that for about 20 years, and then came back into the business to handle the advertising and marketing for the Jerry Seiner dealerships. So, and I've been back about 5 years now with the dealerships.
Wow.
And it's a fun job.
Well, so I would imagine that when you talk about advertising, the entertainment industry is probably not a lot different in trying to vie for consumers' attention than the automotive industry. Can you talk about some of those comparatives?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, if you think about it, the process of purchasing a car is kind of an entertainment. It's an experience that people are looking to have, and they want to get a good value. They want to have a trustworthy and reliable experience and a good collaborator that they're working with. So the messaging that they get from the dealership is really important, that it engenders trust with the dealer right on. And there's a lot of people in the marketplace trying to grab those eyeballs, trying to say, look at me. And they do it a lot of different ways, which is, a lot of fun to always look at the new tricks and gadgets in the world of advertising. But it's a competitive marketplace. And automotive, if you look at the grander spectrum, is probably one of the most competitive advertising marketplaces out there. It's also, we're the kings of retail. It's the most people spend on a, retail purchase short of a home. So it makes sense that it's a competitive marketplace. So we all have to be very good at our game in order to succeed.
Well, and speaking of that, Jerry, I've noticed that in our dialogue, you're part of our one of our Internet BDC 20 groups, and what you really bring to the table is a total grasp of the analytics that drives success. Can you share a little bit as to how you got into that and why analytics is part of your passion?
Well, analytics is really some hardcore ROI, and that's the number one aspect of advertising that you can bring back to your customer, your collaborator. And that's what our business is very driven by, is metrics and realities. Coming from a traditional background, it's a little bit harder to prove the ROI. And as our industry has evolved and we've moved into the digital space so wholeheartedly, there's a huge amount of data available to us. So we've tracked our, we go day by day looking at our organic traffic and match it back to our TV campaigns. And we definitely see spikes when we're on TV versus when we're not, and those are the moments that are critical for us to understand as we're looking at the traffic on our showrooms and matching it back to the message that we've put out on TV and digital, and making sure all of those elements align, so we know what the consumer is looking for, what the consumer is educated on, so we can give them the right experience that they really need when they're shopping for a car.
Well, it's interesting. roll the tape back about 4 or 5 years ago, and on the tip of every digital marketer's tongue was the 0 moment of truth, Google's ZMOT strategy. And you alluded to the fact that you look at your Google Analytics and you study the spikes when you're on traditional media. And something we consistently counsel our clients on is don't abandon traditional and go exclusively digital, because that 0 moment of truth is hard to win when you're, an eighth font away from your closest competitor and nobody knows who you are. So how do you kind of combine those two strategies to really kick it up a notch?
Well, and I think the most important thing to keep in mind in that arena is alignment and collaboration with the show. You need to make sure that your advertising experience isn't, inconsistent with your showroom experience. So when people see something on a TV commercial, it needs to align with an offer that's in your SEM, on your websites. And when then they walk into the showroom floor and they say, well, I'm looking for the power of 3, you can't have a salesperson who says, you want to make sure that they say, of course, we know exactly the promotion that you're talking about. And so they have that consistency of experience. In today's world of advertising and communication, if you see something online and you walk into a store and you don't see it matches, you're just going to walk out. You're going to say these guys don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're offering. And so you have to have all those pieces in alignment in order to find success.
Well, and you touch on something that's really important, and I would be curious, I don't think we've ever talked about this, but how do you get your frontline sales, service, parts, and other employees aware of what you guys are doing both digitally and traditionally to bring customers in so that they are able to greet them and say, oh, sure, I'm able to help you. I see you're in on this strategy or in on this advertisement or this special. How do you carry the word across it? And I know you all have got several dealerships, so that must be a big task in and of itself.
That is a great question. It comes down to the old tried and true shoe leather more than anything else. We like to say, be airborne and not chairborne. Get out there and get with your people. So it's important, as I'm a collaborator within our dealer group, but I spearhead the advertising. It goes nowhere without the collaboration of the showroom. So I get out of my chair and I go and I visit the dealerships. We have 7 showrooms in 3 different locations, but that's the most important thing. Lots of emails. I have weekly set meetings with all of my managers, sales managers, and general managers. And then I get out and I work it then from the ground up, and I grab salespeople that I've known for 20 years, 25 years. I talk to them about what's going on, make sure that those guys are leaders on the showroom floor, that they know what we're currently promoting, and make sure that everything falls into sync. Some months are better than others, but that's the nature of every business.
Well, it reminds me of one of my friends with Ford Motor Company, Jim O'Connor, who's retired now. He used to talk about murmur research. So you go out into the hallway and you hear the murmuring going on. So you have to combine the analytics that you obviously are really familiar with, but also have to have that word of mouth and that feedback loop, because I would imagine a lot of the general managers or store managers and other employees in the dealership give you great feedback. And they're like, Jerry this or Jerry that. So how do you react and balance that and make it less emotion and more just let's work through the process?
Well, I think that it's that's a great question. I think that it's all, the question is how clean is your lens? And I think that all of our data that we get, though it's so much more than we had 10, 15, 20 years ago, even still, there's a fuzziness to it, and you need to balance your collaboration with what you see in your data. So if we're seeing a stronger surge on particular keywords or model searches, then we want to make sure that we're communicating that back to the showroom so that they're seeing what the consumers are really more in tune with. And we try to align that with what their concern is as far as what they're selling. So if they're looking at, we got to move these models, and we're getting a different keyword response than we necessarily like, then we want to make sure that we're trying to shift our strategies to make sure those things align as much as can be. And then you start shifting SEM campaigns in order to kind of, get those things where you'd like them. But it's never a perfect science, and every person that walks into a dealership is an individual person, and you start from the sale, right there from the beginning, make a friend, develop the rapport, and sell the car.
You bet. Well, it's interesting. I like to challenge dealers a lot of times who haven't really considered social media or social advertising, if you will, in their mix. And there's still the word you hear on the street that, oh, you can't sell cars on Facebook or on social media. And I like to imagine a world where dealers had no budgets. And I think we become quite hamstrung in our innovation and our creativity with social actions because we have budgets, and they bring us traffic if we do this, or if we use paid search, or we run TV ads. What's your feeling in the Seiner organization for the use of social media, and are we on the beginning? Are you all swimming rapidly? What are you seeing in that arena?
That's a good question. Still, for me, a somewhat undefined space, but there's a lot of great concepts there. It has evolved as to be a monetized space. So there is an SEM, I call it SEME. There's an SEM angle on it, which you can pay to play. And that certainly is a value. We push website traffic, and that's an important thing. But really, where I see the serious value is where you have a salesperson that is engaged with their community, and it's that social interaction. If you have a salesperson who is engaged with their people, their database, they can use that as a tool to communicate with them and find great success with it. So if you have that curated individual person really working it to their benefit, it's very powerful. And then on the other end, you have that SEME experience of driving traffic to your website. Both of those things definitely have value. And the nice thing is that it's in this world, it's not expensive at this point. They've figured out how to monetize it, keep it cheap in comparison to the traditional world of SEM. Yeah. I'm sure that will change in another year or two. But for now, there's a lot of value there, and dealers can really capitalize on it.
Good advice. So speaking of, I want to switch gears just a little bit. You were talking about the social interaction of your salespeople. Something you brought as a best idea one time to the 20 group was the idea of these celebratory luncheons for your loyal customers. Would you mind sharing that with our viewers so that they can maybe take away a few items that they can act on at the dealership?
Sure. If you really want to have a very powerful experience, great idea is take lunch out to somebody who recently purchased a car. Do it as a surprise. Call their company, their HR department, and say, hey, we just want to bring in lunch and say thank you to somebody who recently purchased a vehicle from you. You would be amazed at how people just light up. And so we started doing it as a test at one of our dealerships. And what was great was one of our techs at the other of our dealership had a neighbor come up to him and say, hey, I just had this amazing thing happen to me at work today. I bought a car from your dealership in another town, and they came in and bought lunch for the shop that I work at. And you see that community involvement, that word of mouth power, that concept just kind of works through your area, and people then are talking about your name. It's not terribly expensive, and it's a great way to get grassroots marketing just happening for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not to pick your best idea cupboard too bare, but one idea that really struck me, and going back, I took it back to my family because one of the things that I am still partners in our store, and I come back from some of these 20 group meetings, I go, Bob, this is a great idea. We got to try it. So your Jerry Seiner Originals, can you share a little bit of that idea?
Right. And it's a great idea. We've seen other people using similar stuff. in the used car market, there's many tiers of shoppers, and they're looking for different, they have different value propositions that they're looking for. And if you're going to be shopping from a dealer, you really want that curated experience. You want the, the platinum effect. You're going to get a lot of value, but you're going to expect a lot from the dealer versus buying from your neighbor. Yeah. So what we have as an advantage as dealers is that we sell vehicles as retail new. And then we take care of them. People bring them in for service. We have a great clientele, been in business for 36 years. So a lot of people just, keep purchasing vehicles from us, same salespeople. And so we then have a vehicle that they trade in on yet another new vehicle that we're now selling as used, that we have a ton of information. And that's a real value in the marketplace. So we've started taking those vehicles, setting them aside and marketing them slightly differently. We call them Seiner Originals. So they were purchased from us originally, serviced with us. We have the service records and then traded back into us. We have them in a separate segment on our website that you can look through, Seiner Originals, which we know, are well taken care of vehicles to manufacturer standards. And that's a great vehicle to buy right there. And fortunately, what we've realized is that it's a really good value proposition, and it's raised our profit margin on those vehicles. We do better on our front end PVR on those vehicles because we're selling a better vehicle that the customer really can have a lot of faith in and a lot of trust in.
Excellent. Well, Jerry, you never disappoint with some great guidance and wonderful ideas. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you down the road.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Boy, I always love talking to another person who was raised in the business like I was. The PhD, Papa Has Dealerships, is always fun when you get to commiserate with fellow dealers' kids. Jerry is full of great information, and I really do appreciate him sharing so much with you today. Thank you very much for joining us here on Kain & Company, and I'll see you next time.